Ain't that awesome? Or as you English say, brilliant. Several years ago, I met a young man who had such a heart for Jesus and is part of one of the greatest worship bands in all of Brazil. And he found out I was going to be here, and he called me and said, "Sure, come on in. I want you to come. I want you to be here." And so behind me sits Lucio Paulo, and he is one of the, some people say he's the greatest drummer in Brazil. And at one point, they said you could never drum, I think, if I remember the story right. Is that right, Lucio? Just couldn't drum, no rhythm. But God, as he started drumming for worship, did something to him. In the New Age, you know, doing their little drum thing in their little drum circles, they're trying to, you know, connect. Well, there's no power I think the drums are so powerful, but these are consecrated for the one who's worthy of all praise, who created rhythm. And I was at one of Rodney Howard-Brown's meeting one time when a guy did a drum solo, and it just kind of broke things open in the spirit realm. And I'm just asking God to just bless Lucio, and as he does this thing, that it might be totally praise unto the Lord. And so, Father, I pray that there'd be, well, matter of fact, I just remembered my friend Gary Oates, his eyes were opened on one of our trips in Brazil so we can see the angels, and he thought he was going crazy at first. And Lucio was doing a drum solo, and Gary is sitting right beside me, and as he's doing his drum solo, all of a sudden he went like that, and I looked at him and said, "What's wrong?" And he said, this is right after his eyes had opened to see in the spirit realm, see the angels and stuff down in Volta Redonda, which is near Rio de Janeiro. And he said, "I think I may be going crazy." I said, "Why?" He said, I just saw like a bunch of angels come out and go right over our heads. That's why I ducked. And he said, "I'm going to have to ask Davi Silva, who was born with Down syndrome." I'm telling you this because you don't know who Davi Silva is. He's the worship leader of the team that Lucio was in. And he was born with Down syndrome, and his mother received a promise from God, or his mother dedicated him to God to be a worship leader with a little boy with Down syndrome. And she prayed for him, and at 6 years old, God healed him, changed his chromosomes, and healed him of Down syndrome. And he today is one of the greatest worship leaders of all of Brazil. And so we're just going to believe. We're going to believe. You got those tight? Because, you know, you ready? All right. Thank you, Lucio. Thank you, Lord. Oh. The worship in Brazil, the nation that the famous missiologist C. Peter Wagner, who's a professor of missiology, said it's the nation most in revival of the whole world. And we were going to Argentina, and when I went my first trip to Brazil about 9 years ago now, we've been spending 50, 60 days a year in Brazil for about 9 years. I said, this country is starting into revival. It's winding down in Argentina, and we're going to catch this wave and ride it. And I think, Tommy, you said it seemed like it did 3 or 4 years ago. It felt like it did 8 or 9 years ago. What God is doing is just awesome, and it's just awesome. Some of the worship leaders and the stuff that he's doing there. I've never been in a culture more expressive in their worship I've been in 36 different countries, and lately been in much more than that. But I've never been in any country where there's a worship of more abandonment than what's happening right now in revival, than in the worship in Brazil. And so I really appreciate our friendship. And he now, where is it you're living? What? You're living where? You can say it.
I'm living in Bognor Regis. God chooses things that are not to confuse the wise, right?
Must be close by. You've got a blessing from Brazil here. And if you want to know about revival, he has seen a lot, being on one of the 2 most famous worship teams in all of Brazil. By the way, Davi, wrote a lot of the songs, was it 8 times he'd gone? How many has he been back since to heaven? That more than 14 times now. When I met him, he'd gone 8. Now he's been there 14 times. It's just amazing. And one time, remember the time he got there and they were singing his song. And he said, "You're singing my song. I wrote that song." And they said, "No, we let you it's not yours. We let you hear it. It's ours." So, thank you, Lucio. Normally on Saturday night, I teach the last session. At this particular school, Leif is going to finish out for me the last half of the day as Tom and I leave for Paris to teach there, and then down in the southern part of France before we go to do another healing school in Kristiansand, Norway, and then in Bergen and Oslo, and some just stuff we're doing. But normally when I teach the last of this school, there's a teaching you will not get because I'm not going to be here, because I'm going to be doing some others. And it's this one. And I really want to encourage you, if you're interested in this subject, it's the power of the Lord's Supper, and it's about the healing power of communion. And often we would during worship, we would have communion. I would teach first, and then we would have communion.